Let's talk problematic players. So this is just spitballing stream of conscious. This is just a bit of a ramble. We're all problematic players, or we all can be problematic players, and we probably all have at one point or another been a problematic player. I know I have. I know there's times when I've led a party into a TPK as a player. I know there's been a time that I yelled at the DM because I didn't think they were following the rules. And I was the problem. So we can all be problematic players. Or we can actually all be problem players. A problematic player is one who is consistently ruining the game for everybody else. And that's the difference between a problem player. A problem player comes in and does a mistake or lets their emotions get away from them and causes a scene during a game that disrupts things, but they aren't consistent in that. And so that's where I have some hope. I don't feel that I'm consistently being a problematic player, but I have been a problem player. So everybody has a bad time, a bad night, a bad moment, a bad scene. Something happens, a switch clicks in their brain, and the next thing you know, the party's dead. All right. Also, mistakes. A player can make a mistake, and the party ends up TPK. Total party kill, if you're new. That's bad. I mean, but hopefully fun was found. Like, oh, we made a mistake and we got our butts handed to each other. All right, that's cool. But a problematic player is one who disregards other players, maybe disregards the DM as well, and also derails the session. And by derailing, we mean everybody at the table is set to go on an adventure. Everybody on the table is focused. They know what their goal is. And they've all agreed that this is the adventure we're going to go on. And the problematic player is one who feels the need to draw the attention to themselves. And with everybody going along in a group thing, the attention isn't on them. And so in order to bring the attention back to them, they will do disruptive actions, robbing the store for no reason other than we're there and my character's chaotic neutral type of excuse. My assumption is that these players are all, there's some type of trauma going on in their life. Like, it may not be as severe trauma, but there is something going on in their lives that are making them feel a lack of control over their lives. And in order to understand and deal with problematic players, it's important to remember that most people don't want to be a jerk. They may be a jerk, but they probably don't want to be a jerk, because that's how you lose friends. And if you lose friends, then you don't have many people to game with. You start going and looking for pickup groups and joining in that way, but that won't last long if they continue to be a jerk by trying to bring all the attention onto themselves or onto their character. And that's another thing that problematic players often have in common is there's no clear distinction between the character they're playing and their own ideas. A problematic player may be playing someone who is logic focused, let's say like a very studious archetypal wizard. And in doing so, they still let their own whims dictate how the character is played. Like, oh, this would be a good time to throw a fireball just because. And it's probably not a good thing at the local fair that the village is putting on. With a problematic player, it comes down to you need to figure out whether you can help this person by talking to them about it or not. And for most people, you'll be able to have a discussion with them. You'll be able to say, hey, look, every time the party is going right, you're going left. And that's causing a lot of time sink. And the way I tend to look at it is if I'm running a 4-hour session and I've got 4 players, then on average, each player should get, an hour worth of time, including group time. So maybe half an hour on one player, half an hour on another, half an hour on the third, half an hour on the fourth, focused, role playing or, engaging them as the DM. And then there's 2 hours that are kind of group activity, all of them together doing something. And it might be a session that's 4 hours, might be completely a group session. Longer combats, you can end up, you're giving each character their initiative of time, along with the monsters or the bad guys' initiative worth of time, and you're splitting that up between all the players. And the problematic player is one who will take up far more time on their turn than any of the other players are taking up. Now, part of the problem is some players, they might not have the rules down. They might just be genuinely indecisive people, and it takes them a little bit. Even though you've gone around combat, they've had time to think what their character is going to do, and they're adjusting for changes on the battlefield. And they get to their turn, and it's going to take them a little bit longer than other players, and that's okay. Like, we're all different. We all have different modes of communicating and being able to engage with this game that we love and enjoy. So we give them, we accept that. We accept them. The diversity within the group, we accept them. It's when they instead are deciding to do things that are not engaging the problem at hand that then they enter into problematic territory. When you're in problematic territory, the character or the player will seek out other actions that not optimal actions. We don't, because a thief character that decides to withdraw from a combat to do something within their milieu is fine. But if they decide to withdraw from the combat and then just go explore something else, well, that's not helping the group in the situation, which is a combat encounter. And you would assume that anybody that has some type of combat experience, most PCs, unless you're running really non-standard player characters, non-standard classes, homebrew stuff, pretty much all the characters, all the classes have some combat ability. which would then necessitate believability within the game that they would protect their friends or help out in the combat however best they can. So what do you do with a problematic player? I mean, have we even really defined what a problematic player is? It's one who's disrailing and disregarding the game and derailing where the game is currently at. So if that's a problematic player, the disregarding other players, disregarding time, not having the empathy for your fellow players that, oh, we're in this together, we're playing a game together, we need to keep it fun for everybody instead of trying to take all the fun or ruin other people's fun by causing problems or derailing the session by just hard my left turn. With a problematic player, the best advice is to talk to them, is to just one-on-one, try not to call it out. You know, if you're another player or the DM, doesn't matter who. If you're having a problem with another problem at the table in the way that they're playing, then talk to them. And if talking to them doesn't resolve the issue, well, then you need to talk to the DM. And if you're the DM, it comes down to the hard call of, like, you know, we're going to have to play without you, to the problematic player. And nobody wants to be excluded from a group. I mean, that's the neat thing about role-playing games, is they're a microcosm of a community. And a community exists through accepting the people within the community, but also ostracizing those who don't follow the rules. And if you aren't following the social contract, if you're breaking it, then you're going to get expelled from that social group. Which sounds harsh, but it's the way humanity has been doing things and does things. And there's good ways to go about it, by trying to be accepting of the other person who's being disruptive, by recognizing that there may be something in their life, most likely there's something going on in their life that is causing them to hurt. And they're taking out that pain or that rage at the table on everybody else, because it's a game and it's safer to take out aggressions and issues through characters than it is to deal with them. Or, you know, maybe they can't, maybe there's a lot of young players and they're still living at home and there might be troubles at home. So whenever you encounter a problematic player, it's really important for you to approach the situation with empathy. But with that being said, you aren't there to be another person's therapist. You can't be expected to fix all the problems that this other person is having and try to find a space in which you can listen to them and maybe help outside of the game. But at the game table, you need to have them recognize that this is an escape into entertainment for everybody at the table. And if you're constantly not allowing that or breaking that illusion, constantly breaking that willful suspension of disbelief through actions that don't seem inherently realistic within the game world to such a degree that it's causing the fun to be sapped out, then if talking hasn't been able to resolve that, then yeah, it might be time to not game with that person anymore. And there's no clear, this is how to tell a player that you're not going to play with them anymore. A lot of people feel that ghosting is a terrible way to do things, and it's not great. But if a person's being a problem at the table and you suspect those problems might manifest outside the table, then ghosting is a viable reason or a viable way to not game with somebody anymore. You just stop telling them when game's meeting, you switch venues so that you don't play at the same place that you were, you do whatever you can to make sure to exclude this person who's causing a problem, because that person may be making the rest of the table feel unsafe. Another aspect of that people often say is problematic players, but really it's just personalities not mixing well. Where you have, I've been in games where a new person has come in and the way that they play, it doesn't mesh with the rest of the group. And in most of those cases, those players just stop making it. They're like, oh, there's some reason that they give that they're not able to show up. A problematic, and that's not problematic. You get along with who you get along with. You can't choose that, really. You can learn to get along with people, and I would say that that's probably more beneficial to you than not. I thought making a video about problematic players was going to be easy. I have a clear idea of what a problematic player is in my head. I know it comes down to being disruptive at the table and not playing well with others, but there's still some aspect that I feel blocked on. The archetypical example of a problematic player is one who plays a chaotic neutral character so that they can justify any action that they do within the game. And most of those actions that they end up justifying are ones that cause more problems for the group than not. So a problematic player, when the party is trying to secretly, or at least, quietly enter a city and gather information from the locals to figure out, where the cult is located, the problematic player, for whatever reason, will instead go in making a lot of noise and do things that aren't in service of finding the cult. So again, possibly robbing stores, killing, fruit merchants, because, these are the tropes. These are the common things that you see the chaotic neutral character doing is, I'm just going to come in and I'll kill this person because I feel like it, and then I'll rob this, and then, I'll give, the server at the bar, I'll give them a 10 gold tip on a 1 copper ale. Things that just don't make sense. And it all comes down to they're taking up time that could be used by the rest of the group and by them to focus on finding this cult in this scenario. And so that's a specific example that I'm trying to get at of what a problematic player is. And so it's disregarding what the group is focused on and derailing the session. Because again, once the chaotic neutral character commits murder, now the DM has to deal with who notices the murder, when do the guards or anybody else find the murdered individuals, what do they start doing about it? Are they able to recognize the person? Now, if they do, then Do they find them at the inn when they're getting their ale and then try to arrest them, and then it's just spiraling into this whole other thing that doesn't include any other character's choice or any other player's decisions, and it's completely derailing what the session was going to be about and the expectations that everybody has. So it's a weird way of a character trying to DM their own story and subverting the expectations of the rest of the group by making it about themselves. So if you find yourself in a game and you feel bored, or if you're disinterested in what's happening at the table and you start doing things that aren't in service of what the group is doing, then that's a sign you might be a problematic player. And again, you might not always be a problematic player, but generally session by session, you might start picking up on these acts that you're doing that aren't helping out and aren't serving the fun for everybody else. And of course, you should be having fun and you should be a part of the group, and your decisions should be considered by the group. And if you're constantly finding that the rest of the group isn't entertaining your interests, then it might not be a good group for you to be in. And instead of causing problems at the table, it might be best for you to find a new group, because the alternative is you will upset people and they will exclude you from the group at some point. They will find a way to not game with you. And that hurts, and that will cause you more pain in the long run, which you then risk in any situation, let alone a role-playing game, of disregarding people's interests and desires. So then it all comes down to, is a problematic player a problem person? Because there are personalities. I'm no psychologist. I'm no psychiatrist. I know the words narcissist and psychopathy, and I could try to apply those to consistently problematic players. Would it be right to? Probably not. There are low empathy people. There are people that are self-absorbed. Maybe even that's not even the right word to use in replacing for a narcissist. But there are people with these personality traits that have learned to work in groups. And so it's not as easy as going, oh, well, this person's a narcissist, it's not going to work out. Or this person has no empathy, it's, they're going to be a terrible gamer. Because that's not true. People can learn what the game is and how to play the game, and they might not have empathy, but they might know what empathy is and want to use the game to try to explore it, which is good. It's generally good to have people learning things and learning how to understand other people and where other people are coming from. And so that's that flip side, is you as a player, if there's a problematic player in your group, you want to have the empathy extend to them, because you may not feel it extending to yourself. And so going to them and trying to say, hey, look, I feel when we're gaming, you're constantly doing things that aren't in service to the group. What's up with that? Because it's taking up a lot of the game time, and it's not letting us get things done. And how do we fix this? What would be fun for you? Because what's going on now isn't fun for me. The best advice is either talk to them about being disruptive at the game table, and if that doesn't work, then find ways to game without them. because you deserve to have fun at the table, which usually the disruptive people are not finding. So that's why they're taking it out, is because they aren't having a fun time. They aren't enjoying what's going on at the table. So this seems to dovetail into what is a good player, what makes a good player. Like once we identify what a good player is, then we can go, okay, the people that aren't following these overall bullet points of good playerhood, they're entering into problematic player territory. All right, so a good player is one who is familiar with their rules of their character. They don't have to know the whole game, they don't have to know every in and out, but they're familiar with their character, they know what their character can do, they're familiar with their spells, if they have spells, they know the rules of spells, how spells work, etc. They know their weapon, if they use it one-handed or two-handed. They know what special abilities they can use with their weapons. They know what their armor is and how it gives them an armor class. Things like that. A good player at least knows the rules regarding their character. And maybe even you could say a good player knows the rules of their character as well as any other player at the table, or even as well as the other worse people at the table. So worse knowledge of rules, not like worse people, but worse knowledge of rules. So if they're all new, if you're gaming in an all new group of people who don't know the rules, then you're not a bad player if you don't know the rules, because you're all there learning. Yeah, so a good player knows the rules incommensurate with the time that they've spent playing the game. So, new players aren't bad players because they don't know the rules. They're there to learn the rules. A good player is one who listens to the other players, not just the DM. I mean, if you don't listen to the DM, that's bad too, but a good player listens to the other players when it's their turn, because what the other players are doing affects what your character does. If the other players are talking to some guard and basically grease the palms of the guard to let them through, and you aren't paying attention, then it looks real bad when you decide, all right, I'm going to sneak attack the guard. Everybody else is, where is this coming from? Why? Because we've already solved the problem. We've bribed the guards and we're getting inside. But if you aren't listening, then you don't know that that's happened. And listening is a huge skill set to have in life in general, but in D&D or role-playing games in particular. So that's a key thing, is to listen to what other players are doing and saying, on top of what the DM says the world is doing and saying. So a good player knows their characters as best as expected, and they listen to the other players when it's not your turn. Third, a good player doesn't interrupt other players. And this one's difficult because everybody gets a great idea in their head and then just starts spitting it out. But a good player recognizes somebody else is speaking, so I'll wait before I throw in my good idea. And it may take a long time. You may have to sit there and wait for somebody to go through a detailed monologue. I'm a big fan of, when I notice somebody else is talking a lot, I will raise my hand. I'll just, I have something to say. I want to listen to what they're saying, but I'd like to remember that I have something to say, and I want the DM and everybody else at the table to know that I have something to say, but I recognize I need to wait. And so raise your hand. Hello. 1 second. Yes, here I am. Now discuss. So know the rules, at least of your character. Listen to what everybody else is saying, because you're playing a game that requires you to listen to form the imaginary terrain in which you are moving, and don't interrupt. And I know for myself and for a lot of people, that's a difficult one. And as long as you're cognizant of it and you work hard to not interrupt. And what I started to do is and I'm sure I was annoying as all get out doing it, but I would police other players because I was aware that I started interrupting. So it really, in trying to stop myself from interrupting, I would try to focus and listen to what a person is saying. And then when somebody else would interrupt, I'd go, oh, wait, you're interrupting. Keep going to the other person. That can help you recognize when you're interrupting, but it also might be annoying too. So personality, it can go a long way. But usually the person talking will appreciate the fact that you notice that somebody else just interrupted, and that will ingratiate you to that person. They will, oh, I appreciate this person. They're looking out for me. They are recognizing. They are listening to me. I know somebody's listening to me. And that's important. So know your rules. Listen. Don't interrupt. What else? A good player will engage the story at hand. So if you're currently on some quest, then you will find ways for your character to be focused on the outcome of that quest. You can still have little side moments. You can start the seeds of another quest. You can do a lot of different things while still focusing on the main quest and making sure that you're helping everybody else if they're also focused on the main quest. Now, players are going to go in their own directions, and it's very possible that the group of players may go, hey, that sounds really dangerous, and it doesn't sound like something we want to get involved in. And then all the players start talking amongst themselves, and supposedly in character, because their characters are the ones actually having this conversation, and their characters all finally go, you know what? That's something for somebody else to deal with. We saw that thing over there that looked a lot more interesting, and we're going to go check that out instead. And I've had that happen a lot as a DM all the time. Players go, you know what? We just got a hint of a thing. We're not gonna pick up on that, and we're not gonna go that way. We're gonna go see if there's something else over here that gets our interest. And as a DM, you just kind of gotta push your ego down and go, meh, it's okay. Maybe they'll get interested, maybe they won't. But if they aren't interested, you don't want to drag them into it, because that's how a DM can create a group of problematic players. And it's not their fault, really, that they've become problematic players, because in those situations, I haven't dangled the appropriate bait. And if I can't get them to bite that bait, then I need to do better in creating bait that baits them. So, all right. So there are 4 things for being a good player. Know the rules, at least of your character, to the best of your ability at the time that you're playing. So if you're new, it's okay if you don't know everything. And if you've been playing for 1,000 years and you always play a fighter, then probably good that you know how your fighter works, mechanically speaking. To listen to other players and the DM, but listen to other players, listen when they talk. Don't interrupt. It's bad. And keep focused on whatever story your characters are currently on. If you're not on a story, have your characters create one of their own. Decide to figure out how to uh, build your own tavern in town, or take over a thieves guild, or create your own thieves guild, or attempt to overthrow the king. Whatever works for you, there's a story, and a good DM will realize, hey, the players are doing all the work in the setting. All I have to do is, run the encounters at this point, and make the NPCs react accordingly, and throw in a couple, thunderstorms or something. Random encounter, anyone? Um, so yeah, so there's 4 keys to being a good player. 4 keys to being a good player. And if you disregard those, then you're on your way to becoming a problematic player. Now, notice in those 4 things, none of them are about doing voices or great acting or optimized builds that will destroy the opposition. What was this? This is Mind Flayer quotes. Quote. So you don't have to worry about that to be a good player, because as long as you're playing your character as believably as possible, and there is nothing more derailing of a session than a player doing a bad accent. I know, because I do bad accents. I inundated my partner with a bad accent all day Saturday, and I don't know why. I woke up dreaming in a terrible accent, and then all day long, oh, I'm doing a bad accent for you, love, and it's terrible, and my partner put up with it, and I'm very grateful for that. And at the game table, if you try to do an accent and you're bad at it, then it's not going to help people become immersed into the game. And you want people to be immersed into your game. So yeah, you don't have, like, if you can dress up, great. If you can do an accent, great. If you can, do full method acting and really get into your character, and fantastic. That's always a lot of fun to have at the table. I've always enjoyed it when my players are able to do accents and really get into their characters. And I mean, it's a lovely thing to be like, oh no, I didn't have this part of the session planned, but then your players just decide to start to have a conversation amongst themselves for 20 minutes, and then an NPC comes in, and they talk with the NPC for another 20 minutes, and it's all, everybody seems to be having fun and engaging in the conversations, and then I have another week to plan for the next session. Great. So being able to do accents is not one of the top 4 things that make a good player. And being able to, immerse yourself completely into the role of your character is not one of the top 4 things to being a good player. Being a good player is knowing the rules of your character, listening to the other players and the DM when they're talking, not interrupting, and well, there was a 4th one, and now we've forgotten it. It's flew by us. The 4th reason, or the 4th thing to being a good player. Oh, keeping focus on the story, which is pretty on par, because the mirrored analogy, or the mirrored version, is to keep focus on this video, which I wasn't able to do there at the end. And so yeah, I'm not a great player. I have my moments, but I'm not a great player. I'm okay. And that's okay. People appreciate when you're at the table and you're there to have a good time with everybody else. And they appreciate it when you listen to them, and they appreciate not being interrupted, and they appreciate it when you know your character so that when it's your turn, especially in combat, you're able to quickly get your stuff out and done, and then, and then move along to help the combat feel tense and exciting and fast moving and fast paced, even though it can take hours to finish some combats. So I think we'll end it there on the good note of what it is to be a good player and using those to help make sure that you don't become or don't engage in problematic player behavior. Also, remember the player may seem problematic, but there's probably other things going on in their life that that are probably as a root cause to what's going on at the game table. So a little empathy can go a long way. All right, thank you, and happy Christmas season, happy holidays, uh, all the best, and we'll talk to you next time.